If you're looking for a disruptive small cap company in the battery metal sector, HPQ Silicon is making waves with its record-setting silicon-based anode materials that literally redefine the performance standards of lithium-ion batteries. And more than just lip service, HPQ recently announced a Canadian federal grant of up to $3 million to build its first battery production facility. And Federal Minister of Energy and Natural Resources Tim Hodson put a quote in that announcement where he said, projects like HPQ Silicon strengthen Canada's ability to manufacture components for the high-performance batteries and are creating a world-class battery ecosystem. So HPQ is now proving it to the rest of the world by first launching its own proprietary battery, the actual hard battery, in order to pave the way for selling its proprietary silicon anode material directly to battery manufacturers themselves, the market of which is expected and could reach $130 billion by 2033. Bernard, today's press release, HPQ Silicon confirms completion and shipment of its first industrial batches of HPQ Endura battery cells. Congratulations. Welcome back, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And first of all, I want to say that the Agoracom travel press release indicator is right on cue because I'm in Singapore and I get this call from you when I'm half asleep. It's a charge. But yesterday we couldn't do it.
Yeah, but we gave you an extra 24 hours to rest. Come on.
Yeah, you did, and it worked out great. I mean, it's 11:30 over here, but I'm happy to be doing this. And more importantly, it also gave shareholders a chance to post some great questions into the forum on Agoracom. So we're going to get to those.
Yeah.
Let's first talk about this. All right. I usually ask you when you have milestones like this, what does it mean that they're shipped, and what does that mean for your commercialization journey? Because obviously that's where you want to get to. That's where the rubber hits the road per se. So how big of a milestone? A lot of people may take it for granted. How are you feeling about it?
No, we're very excited. It's all part of a transition to go from just an R&D developing new batteries. You got to remember that, the first batteries we tested got the result were more R&D batteries, and these are more commercial batteries. They were manufactured on a commercial line as opposed to an R&D line. And that means that we've demonstrated, or we are demonstrating that our batteries can be replicated at scale using traditional process, improved traditional process, but still traditional process. So it starts to position us as a potential either battery cell supplier, material supplier. So it opens up different type of areas. Like I'll just give a bit of a feedback we were getting now, because right now what happens is we're showing a data sheet, which we just finished our 21700 data sheet. Because what happened is we couldn't use the 21700 data sheet from the lab scale battery we made. So we had to redo the testing for the new commercial batteries we did, and that was done by Novation because they got their first batch before us. And so now we have that material, that information, and we're starting to show it. And just yesterday, I had a top expert in the field of batteries in a country that was very impressed by our results of our data sheet. Now, the next step is when people get impressed by our results of our data sheet is, okay, can you send me some sample for us to do our testing? Normal commercial development processes, nothing outside of the tutorial. We're going through the check mark of doing this. So, Novation has their sample of their set of batteries in Europe, they can deal with them. And then HPQ will start getting its own sets of material. And we already have, starting today, we're going to have a sort of a commission salesman that's going to start to go getting through this process, getting moving. It's absolutely the normal process you go when you enter a field, because we'll be replacing people that are accustomed to using XYZ batteries, and we got to show them that there's a great technical improvement using our batteries. And that's what we're in the press release. Come on. Right now, the other batteries die after 500 cycles. Just yesterday, we're having a very interesting conversation with a potential client. And he was telling us that...
Do tell?
I can't tell more. But it's,
I know I got to ask though.
But I can't tell more. But one of the point of discussion that was really interesting was that because of their application and the way they need the energy, okay, they had to design it so after a certain level of usage of the batteries, battery lines, the instrument had to go on emergency shutdown mode so it doesn't get damaged, so it has enough time. And what we're suddenly realizing is, wait a minute, with our batteries, it can last longer before that situation occurs. So there's all those type of discussions that are going with multiple companies. They're going to be going. I think that there's one group I really want to attack once we have the sample. It's going to be Bixie here in Montreal. They have electric batteries, and everybody's telling me, like, especially if you're in the lower part of Montreal, going up to the higher part of Montreal, you want to have the electric batteries, the electric bikes.
Juice.
So that's just a normal process of entering a commercial stage of the thing, which is going to require a bit of a modification the way it is. But we're just advancing. We're just doing the check,
Yeah,
and we
checks
wanted
and
to
balances,
keep
the blocking
yeah
and tackling.
yeah yeah,
Well,
yeah, yeah,
okay,
just
so I
yeah.
I was going to ask you about this, so I'm glad you because
Mhm.
I want to look everybody. I think you've almost spoiled everybody because everybody understands the performance and the record setting, so we almost don't have to go through that. There's a reason why you're
Mhm.
here. So I want to jump more into commercialization. So you said,
Mhm.
or the press release says, the newly manufactured batches will be used in direct discussions with prospective clients across various sectors, including
Mhm.
mobility, electronics, defense, and telecommunications.
Mhm.
Can you elaborate? So here's my exact question because it's, I always ask, but this is a better way of asking. Can you elaborate on how these discussions are originating? What's that? Because you just said your biz dev guy is starting to work today. You just said so. Are these calls
Mhm.
that are coming in? Are these conversations you've had previously where everyone is waiting for you to get to this point? How are these discussions originating? Because you just said several discussions with several potential customers just a
Well,
minute ago. How's it originating?
all the discussions so far have originated by people reading our press release, finding our information, maybe sometime even watching our interviews, and then being interested in and asking us follow-up questions. So that's what the one-on-one. Now that we're gonna have somebody more dedicated to do, basically when we're gonna have somebody more coherent to do, he will start to go being more specific on approaching. But we have to be also realistic. We're our annual capacity, and we divulge that information. We can make up to 1.5 million battery cells. That may sound like a big number, and if we sell them at a price we're looking at, it's going to be an interesting revenue stream, right? But in the big scheme of batteries, the situation, it's not that much. It breaks down to 125,000 battery cells per month or capacity. So we're gradually get into that position as we work with the help of the federal government and the grant and the other people we're talking
Yeah.
to gradually increase our capacity to make material. One of the key things that I'm really finding really interesting is that there is really a demand for a Canadian entire battery chain manufacturing um, value chain that is out there. I'm actually having discussion with one countries where they have a clearly distinct no Chinese batteries in our material. And those are the things that can happen. So what's good about our process is that as we develop and as we get the credibility moving forward with our record, we'll have more and more graphite players in silicon and other type of manufacturing. I think Canada is perfectly positioned to offer an entire battery ecosystem. Okay, and HPQ is incredibly well positioned because has been confirmed to me through my discussion with the people in Ottawa about many subjects. The people working on silicon-based material for batteries that have reached our level of expertise, which is the same one as all the big one, in such a amount of time, are we're it. That's how we got that's how we got the grant for
Wow.
my comprehension. So the key point is we are in a good position. It's advancing. I know I can hear people here. There's going to be other technology of batteries. I will go back to what my guys at the Novation keep telling me. They were in the solar industry, okay? And the solar industry started with photovoltaic cells, okay? And there was always a new great technology that was going to take it over, okay? And here we are 60, 50 years later after the invention, we are still using the same basic technology improve 1,000 times, but still using the same basic technologies. And we believe that that's the same thing is going to happen to battery. Lithium ion batteries with a graphite silicon base into it is going to come into it. Everybody's going to talk about solid space. And it also depends on how you need the energy of those issues. So the key message I want people to understand is that HPQ with we're well positioned to make silicon-based anode material. But you have to understand that, as weird as it is, silicon-based material, the silicon into it is just one ingredient. It's not the key ingredient. It's just how you transform that into silicon-based anode material, and that's where we have the expertise.
What levels? Well, first of all, let's say this. Doesn't this manufacturer
Mhm.
being able to manufacture and ship these batteries prove your point that your materials are almost plug and play? Because I'm assuming, I don't know, but
Mhm.
I would assume this manufacturer didn't have to go through some big retooling, didn't have to go through some big upgrade in order to accommodate this. So, isn't that also in itself, when you're talking to other potential customers and things like that, isn't this shipment in of itself proof that, in fact, you've got the better material and it's just as easy? I'm assuming it's just as, or maybe slight change, I don't know, but it's just as easy to manufacture the batteries as it would have been if it was all graphite.
Yes, but you understand that this is sort of like a show me attitude. Okay. So there's a difference between saying, okay, we've done a few lots of batteries at the lab scale and we've tested them. And then this is an industrial lot that we can replicate in quantities. So this is where it's moving, it's advancing. We're really in the right direction. What's also interesting about this is that these type of results and milestone that we're reaching, including the government grant, is opening up an all new venture of people that are looking at HPQ and all the verticalities that it has. And one of the things that people are starting to tell me is like, we're way undervalued for all the verticalities that we have. This is where we are, this is what's going, but we are advancing on target. We're getting the things moving. Like advancing on target means that we're moving the project forward in a very coherent, intelligent way. And we see multiple very interesting opportunities.
What in the discussions, I want to say at the commercialization side, what are the levels of interest right now? Is it, George Calm e-bikes is saying, "Hey Bernard, we saw you put out a press release. Send us a few. We're just going to give," or how would you gauge the levels of interest from the discussions you're having right now? And if you can also add to that, was there a reaction to the federal grant and the quote from the minister and so on and so forth? Because you yourself have said that people are watching these interviews. So if they're watching the interviews, they've got to be watching your press releases. So
Mhm.
what's the level of interest and how much higher, if at all, I have to assume they did, but how much higher did those levels of interest go with, the federal government essentially giving you a stamp of approval?
It's an ongoing process. We announced this September 11th. It's moving forward. I can tell you that it definitely changed the dynamic from because everybody understands that when you talk to those people in Ottawa, you're talking to people that have done that have access to everything that's been done in the battery material.
All
Okay.
right.
Silicon is a critical material, recognized as a critical mineral, but silicon is not a mineral. Silicon is a manufactured material. Then using silicon in battery, everybody knows, but everybody understands the technicalities and difficulties. Everybody keeps talking to us about the problem about swelling. When you have 1,000 cycle done, it's very, very great. Three-quarters of and the reason why the other person was also like the other company we were talking about says they have to design a system where once a certain level of power has been drained from the batteries, they have to go on a kill switch to to save the equipment. That's because usually if you have higher power demand for batteries, which requires silicon into it, basically at one point they crash because of the swelling. We've demonstrated, but
It sounds like you may be giving it away, by the way, because it sounds like something that's flying.
well, no, that's just because I'm using my hand.
It's not
That's
a
just
bike. It's not a power tool.
no, but it's something more critical in the sense where the energy demand is more critical. Okay, and it's part of all the system that we can be using. It could be it could be radios, it could be communication with those issues. So it's like don't estimate my hands
All
as a
right.
tool.
All right.
Let's not get into the look at the t-shirt, try to figure out some things type of point of view. But the key issue is that our batteries, we've demonstrated that we've sort of dealt very well with the swelling issue. We found a very good material. We're still doing
Clearly.
some. twinkling to improve a bit the performance. But fundamentally, you put our battery cells into an EV bike, and we'll get 30% more energy over the life cycle of the bike. But there's a difference between saying this, demonstrating, showing it. And we're now at the point where we're going to have very soon the batteries delivered. And we'll be able to start doing some exchanges of information, because on the technical data, yes, it's easy. You sign an NDA, you start discussing those material. Yes, it looks interesting, but to be able to say, okay, we're going to send you batteries and see how we can work, uh, that's going to come into it. And eventually, because of the fact that our material, okay, can be very easily integrated into an existing production line, all right, the possibility therefore increases. The reason why we use 18650 batteries as a demonstration protocol is fundamentally for one very specific reason. It's a known data point and those type of things. But what we've done to these materials, we can do to pouch batteries that are used in computers, that are used in other type of things, issues, and they're used in cell phones. So the markets we're going to be working move forward, but we decided to focus on these batteries because we can probably liquidate significant quantities of these batteries, generate revenues, and generate interest, and generate knowledge of our brand.
Nice.
So, that's where we fit.
So we don't script these questions because you said when they arrive. So my question actually right now, next was going to be ballpark. When you expect the batteries to arrive? I'm going to assume you probably have a specific date because once something is shipped, if someone ships me, 100 cases of this water, I got a pretty good idea it's going to come, next Thursday or whatever. Can you give us a ballpark? I'm not going to pin you down to a date, but can you give us a ballpark when you expect them to arrive?
I probably like in the next 24 for 48 hours or maybe in a week, I'll know more exactly the ballpark. Well, I know it's been shipped, it's on the process. It's, you got to remember that a lithium batteries is a dangerous good. So it has to go
Yeah.
through a certain part of process. It has to be shipped
All
very
right.
specifically in different type of thing. So it's like, when will I have done this like 10 times? I'll give you the exact answer. But on the first one, on the first one, I'll wait till we go through the entire step. But it was important for me because, we had mentioned about Q3 would be in position, which we are starting to commercializing. So it was important to say, yes, the batteries are on their way. Novation has theirs. They're doing it on their side. We're doing it on our side.
Um, do you have a temptation when they come? And I have a temptation. If I put on my entrepreneurial hat, I might go grab an electric bike, like the one that you're talking about in Montreal there. And
Hmm.
now I don't know if you guys are capable of doing this, but create a unit where you put all your batteries into it and grab one of theirs as soon as you see that it freshly has been charged. You wait, and then just use them both the exact same time. George and Bernard go up, through the streets of Montreal, uptown in Mount Royal, and see, side by side, which one's going to last longer. You guys thinking of doing anything like that on your own, or strictly going to
I
leave that
th-
to the end user guys?
well, we're probably gonna mix and match of those issues. I think one of the because the quantity that we have of batteries, okay. If I end up getting a two big clients, a Costco, like I'll give a crazy example, those type of things, they're gonna ask me for three times my production capacity. It's like, so we're gonna have to be more strategic in where we go and discuss. But that's actually not a bad idea. We could probably find an e-bike repair shop that's going to be very excited to be able to offer this opportunity to its clients. So that's where the idea was like I don't have time to do this. That's why we have now a dedicated business development person that's commission based. So
Motivated.
he's going to be motivated to sell.
We've touched on this question also in the past. Will you have enough for quote unquote a special edition pack, like where shareholders can buy a pack of 5 for $100 or something like that as the first batteries they receive? Shareholders almost like, it's almost like an NFT. It's almost like a
Mhm.
collectible or something like that. Any plans to do something like that, like we've talked about in the past, or you maybe just don't have the luxury of doing that just yet because you won't have enough? But I got to ask because I know I would want
No,
a
I,
set
if,
five
if
that's
it,
signed by you or something. I think that'd be historic.
To be totally honest, yes, we will be looking at those type of things, but you have to understand that, we're gonna have to scale up a bit more HPQ as a company, having more people into it. So yes, that's something, there's a lot of marketing ideas that can be done. We can do special editions, our first one, or a record-breaking one, those type of issues that we will be looking into. But right now, our focus is more on getting our first key orders, okay, so that we can generate our target of selling the 1.5 million batteries that we have the capacity to do right now, and then gradually moving forward. But there's so many different areas we can talk. We're gonna have to be more focused. So that could be a good idea, but that really where the biggest bang for the bucks for the company is going to be? I don't know yet.
I like that you put this statement also in the press. In the press, we said uh, ensures that HPQ and Novasium can remain focused. And this is why you have the large scale manufacturer. You remain focused on the development optimization of your proprietary silicon based anode material. So,
Mhm.
does that mean you guys are still leaning heavy towards you'd rather optimize the materials and then go to all these different battery manufacturers and just sell them materials? Because I know you could probably make more money by adding value and creating the battery, but distribution wise, you can sell a ton to existing guys, and you have to worry about, you know, distribution, B2B, and all that kind of stuff. So, is that why you put that in there? Does it seem like that may be the big focus until you guys get to proof of concept, and then focus on the materials rather than the batteries themselves?
Well, at this moment, it's easier for us to have subcontracting the manufacturing of that. Eventually, as I said, if there's a full demand for a full Canadian entire line, instead of maybe us trying to do everything, maybe partnering up with somebody in graphite, somebody in batteries, and try to create a full Canadian entity into this. So we keep our optionalities open, knowing full well that we have something that will make Canadian graphite batteries greater. And I think that's one of the main arguments. I think that's one of the main selling point now that we have when with the backing of the Canadian government for developing this technology, is because that's the key point. I still don't understand why graphite manufacturers. Well, I do understand, because they probably don't. As surprising as it is we're having a hard time getting the amount of material to the specification that we can get commercially from many of the graphites player here, which sort of surprises us, but it's just one of the reality that it is. So we're probably more advanced than where the graphite anode players are with regard to our material. But still being said, it's going to be an incredible opportunity for them, and we're more than open to work and develop with them.
Yeah, it's just going to take one. It's just going to take one to say, let's do it. And then I think everyone's going to have to follow at that point, right?
Mhm.
Um, World record. I've kind of asked you this in the past, and then we're going to move on to questions from the investors. When, if at all, I think you've alluded to this, when would you officially try to go for the world record in terms of, capacity and the energy and all that? What are you thinking, if anything? Have you got new thoughts on that?
Um, we're getting close to being ready to do that one. We don't know if it's going to be a Gen 4 or an improved Gen 3. But I don't want to give out timing or delays and these things. We're just going to come up with this is the results, we've done it, as opposed to. But it's an ongoing process, and it's an ongoing objective of ours.
Okay. Um, Perfect on that end. You had
Mhm.
posted one of the benefits of us waiting a day because I flew into Singapore. And by the way, it's midnight over here for Sunday. So if anybody sees me a little bit catch myself, it's because I've been exhausted for the last 36 hours landing here and doing all sorts of amazing stuff on the RWA side, on the real world asset side. The meeting has been just unbelievable. And it's going to revolutionize our industry. But one advantage was that it gave investors a chance to post some questions to Agoracom that you want to answer. So um, you read them off. My team post production here is going to flash them on the screen. So we don't have to screen share or anything like that, but they're going to flash them on the screen for us. Do you want to go through? Do you want me to read them off? Actually, that
why
makes
don't
more
you?
sense. Let me read them
Yeah.
off because it does make sense for you to read your own questions at the end of the day. Questions, I mean, your own
Well, yeah, but
questions that directed to
and
you.
basically the idea, if there's any editing done, is you've done the editing, not me. That we, we might just go for the important part of every one of the questions because
Yeah. Yeah, I'll read it. And, but yeah.
the congratulation to me, it's not necessary to say. Let's just go to
Well,
the interesting question.
Matt Boy, sorry, you said congratulations, but we're not going to be able to read the congratulations. So no congratulations from Matt Boy, even though he did congratulate you. Question from Matt Boy.
Mm.
Can you clarify if this is a batch or a large run? How many batteries have been produced for the North American market? And are they being produced in tandem for the European and North American market at the same time?
Okay, the best way I can answer at this specific moment, there are small batch run that we are doing specifically for ours. Okay. What you have to understand is what happens is that we supply the manufacturer with our engineered silicone material. Okay. They then use it to run a batch for it, and then we have our agent there basically recuperate all the leftover material and we keep it in our inventory at site. So right now we're running batches because we're not in a position to run a large order, okay? But the manufacturer has the capacity. So the manufacturer has the capacity to do small batch runs to large to massive batch run. So we're just taking advantage of this. As I said, the idea is to have those batteries demonstrate we can do it and move up. We will eventually, okay, our goal is for Novation and HPQ, whoever's end up selling them, will have a capacity to make 125,000 of these batteries every month. So that won't be a batch run. That'll be a batch run of 125,000. But that will require that we have the working capital to finance those batteries as they come in because there's going to be a bit of rotation from between manufacturing and selling them. So right now it's mostly for us to get sort of like more firm buy orders and then to be able to organize it as we test the entire process. Shipping, manufacturing, securities,
Yep.
amalgamation, all those type of issues. So it's like you don't switch a light and become a salesman overnight. It's like it's a process, and we're in the middle of the process, and we're executing in the process, and we're reaching the goal that's required to do it. So it's like we're moving forward.
Yep, but along the way, you're gonna discover more and more efficiencies and better ways to do things. But thank you, Matt Boy. Next one comes from Common Sense, who has two questions. First one is when can we expect the website online? And they're referring to hpqendura.com.
Hmm.
And then the second question is, would you only be selling in bulk to other businesses or also to the public through the website?
Okay. Now, actually, that's a point where there's always improvement or decision making that moves on the original idea we had was to have a transactional website. But then we're realizing that the first order until we get to a certain point, it's going to be more a one-on-one interaction with individual customers before we get those orders. So before we get a transactional website, we're going to get more an informational website, which we're looking at designing and we're looking at doing it right now. And we realize after we did this that we're not in a position to be a transactional B2B type of system because we'll need an inventory, we'll need the supplies and those type of issues. But we're perfectly designed for being a source where people get the information about our batteries, contact us, and then we move there from the sale area. So the short answer is it's gradually going to move there, but I think the first step is and we learn, like we learn from those issues. We thought it would be faster to do it this way and realize no, it might not be the best way for us to reach our overall goal, which is what, find a way to liquidate it and not liquidate, not the right word, but basically sell at the best price possible the batteries we can manufacture. And how's that work? I think in the beginning, getting a few contracts to stabilize the issues before we go full B2B on those type of issues. Because remember, B2B, we're gonna have to deal also with returns, problem issues, and those type of things. So I don't know if that. So the answer is at the
Yep,
beginning,
yep.
at the answer is gonna be more bulk that we're gonna do with specific clients, with eventually a goal of having a B2B website.
Yeah, and you won't be able to be continuous till you're getting repeat orders, people have tested it, but so
Mhm.
this makes the most sense, and that's what anybody would do. So
Mhm.
thanks, Common Sense, for those questions. Next one comes from Acer. Uh, Hello, Bernard. The same batteries that are being received in Montreal are the ones being used by the French military stat section for their communications equipment testing and trial. If yes, how's that going? And could the French military or NATO buy all 1.5 million cells? Very exciting. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Be cautious what I say. As I said, a lot of people watch what we're doing, and when we have ongoing discussions with government-based entities, they don't like us to talk about it. So we did mention, we were allowed to say that there was tests done with our stat batteries, okay, but they were the test batteries. Basically, they were from our batch, a lab scale batch. Without going to too much details, there is interest now to go to the next stage, which will be a formal order of the same new batteries that we're having. As for the other question about NATO, those issues, that is one of the issues that we're actually now opening the discussions with, because we now finally have an entry point, which is the Natural Resource Canada Ministry, and the battery personnel there, to have our own discussion, to have our own batteries tested for the militaries, because fundamentally the applications are the same, the usage are the same. The Canadian soldier of tomorrow and the European soldier of tomorrow is going to be the same thing of walking batteries because of all the electronics on it. So, and then it plays more into it having a completely Canadian battery line manufacturing. So it fits into it. And yes, they could take our entire 1.5 million batteries, but eventually, if you take a look at Nanograph at the beginning, they had the capacity to do about what we were doing, 1.5 million batteries. They were doing about the same thing we did. And then eventually, out of the blue, the U.S. military says, "Oh no, we want to integrate all this into the U.S." And they gave them a big check and a big order for 50 to 60 million batteries, because a military, and that's not even for the entire demand of the batteries. So you can see that the number of batteries numbers can be very, very high.
Next question is from Kite Surfer, and just to show that it's not all, go, 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 a little criticism here. Quote, so exact, and it's a good question. Bernard, I find this warrant extension dubious and questionable. If these warrants end at a certain date, they should be closed, regardless if they expire worthless. That's the agreement made when issuing the warrant, and that's the agreement all should know and meet. You are giving a present to these warrant holders, and in my opinion, that's not fair and honest to current retail shareholders. This is the first time since I became a shareholder of HPQ that you made a dubious decision. I guess the warrant holders are pissed that you're unable to execute and got the share price above 30 cents, but that's not an argument to extend the warrants. Okay, so obviously I get where Kite Surfer's coming from. By the way, my personal experience, I see warrant extensions all the time. There's a reason why
Mhm.
those happen, but you want to shed some light
Yeah,
on
yeah.
for
No,
Kite Surfer there?
listen, I hear you. I hear the concern, and I respect the opinion. Everybody's allowed to their opinion, but the reality is the reason why this is the first time we ever done it is that financing in 2000. When was it done? Like 2 years ago. Anyway, that financing was the only financing we've done. The rest of the financing the rest of the money that came in the company came through either property transaction that we've done when we got shares of third parties or warrants that were exercised. Okay. And so a warrant exercise is part of a mechanism. It is a tool to go into it. Now, we have to go take a look at this. Yes, there was some delays into getting those issues, but you got to look at the overall picture. Okay. It's only 4% of my outstanding warrants, which makes it probably less than 0.005 warrants into it. Okay. It is a financing tool that is there because I've already paid commissions that were attracted to these issues and paid everything related. And the exercise, I would understand that moment if there was a repricing that would come into it. Okay, but we're keeping the same
Which
price.
happens a lot also, by the way,
Which
which I've
also,
seen more than.
which also, so there's no repricing. The only thing I'm giving them is a longer period. And between the share price where we are now and the exercise price, there is a decent profit margin. So I really don't, I don't think we're damaging shareholder values doing this. I think it's going to help us if it goes above 30 cents, which I fully believe that we have the materials to go there. It's a nice way to go financing. The size of our warrants compared to our float isn't too big, and those exercises were not that big. So, these shareholders accepted to take a finance. If people might have forgotten, but at that moment, the financing was done at a higher price than the market again. So, I think it's fair. I think it's normal. I think it's part of the toolbox that we have to raise money in the companies having warrants. And I'm willing to take the criticism that come with that decision, but that's okay.
Yeah, and like I said, for the record, I've seen warrant extensions for the entire 27 years I've been doing this. And to add a little color to that, the exchange has to approve the warrant extension. You
Hmm.
can't just unilaterally make the decision, wave your wand, and it happens. So the exchange has to approve it at the same time. But yeah, personally, I'm okay also because if you want to go raise money, you don't have to go out and raise the money. The warrants are there. And
Hmm.
you can, assuming the price goes over the strike price, but then the money's there. So and hopefully they're friendlies who have proven them. I'm hoping they prove themselves to be friendlies, which is why you did this, because if they're unfriendlies, guys are just dumping it for the warrant, then I've seen guys like that cut off also by management.
Hmm.
Lastly but not least, Mag Beach. Bernard, congratulations. Won't say that. To you and the FCM. Well done. Cheers for meeting the self-imposed deadline. With that being said, and without naming any end customers, could you provide the numbers of batteries slated on the top and low ends of the spectrum?
I think that goes back to our capacity, which is going to be like our goal is to at least sell 125,000 batteries per month. It might take us a little bit of time for it, but in our internal planning, that's where we're going for. At this specific moment, what we're doing more is getting into it, but we're having multiple discussion in multiple areas by multiple people that can come into it. And that can do it. So I don't really want to give a spectrum at this moment. I don't think I'm in a position to give guidance on the exact number. I think it's a little bit too early. Give us a few months of discussion, getting a few sales done, and then we'll be able to give you guidance. That's really what it is.
Nice. Second half of that question. Oh, do you have more to
No,
add to
no,
that
no, that's
answer?
fine. No, that's fine.
Second after that is to that question. Also, why are the batteries being shipped to Canada first? Could they have been shipped to the customers directly, or does this relate to the HPQ North America sales aspect? Just curious in this regard, did any of the customers provide feedback as to how long it would take for them to perform? We've kind of talked about that,
Yeah,
but you
we,
might
we,
want to
we
touch
sort
about
of.
it. Um,
Yeah.
and
Well,
have they told you if they like it, they'll they'll continue. That's called sometimes a condition. What's a condition precedent?
mhm.
uh a condition subsequent. I can't remember now because again it's midnight past, it's quarter after midnight. But where a customer says if they work, you got an automatic order. So first talk about the why being shipped to Canada and why didn't just send directly to the customers, and so
Well,
on and so forth.
at this specific moment, I think I've explained that these batches are there for us to sign up larger orders. Eventually, they'll go directly to the customer, so we don't have to warehouse them, or maybe we'll end up having to have a warehouse where we have certain inventories. So these are all things that are being adjusted as we move forward, which is completely normal. So at this moment, we're not going to be selling we're not going to be sending tons of batteries to get the material refined. First thing is we get the exchange on the data sheet. Interest is shown. We start sending a few batteries. They like it, and then we can start discussing about placing orders and getting those issues. But so we need to have a little bit of an inventory for ourselves, for me and the sales guy, to be able to start showing and sending them. So that was just the logic behind it. And remember, we have the North American exclusivity, but in a certain way, right now, the way the world is, it's every country sort of like by itself. So every
Yeah.
country's become a verticalities. So we're going to focus more on Canada and Mexico at this moment.
Yeah, well, just yesterday I think Trump announced that he doubled down on the movie industry. And then he came out surprise about the furniture industry, saying if you're not manufacturing your furniture here, then you're going to face significant tariffs or whatever the case is. So it's almost like, but the good thing about you is you're modular. If all this works out well, you can just set up in each country and not have to worry about a thing. You don't have to
Yep,
worry
that's
about a
the
massive $500 million capex who you put in one place and serve everything.
That's the concept. All right. So I think we
All
covered
right, my
everything.
man. Well, that is all the questions, and it looks like we're going to go over by the time we say our goodbyes over 40 minutes. So I wonder if there's an over/under bet. Sometimes there's an over/under bet that's being done on these, but
I thought it would be under 30 minutes, but I was wrong.
well, you know what? The investor questions are fantastic, right? So thanks
Yep.
to all the investors who took the time to post that. And guys, thanks for, continuing to do what we've asked you to do, which is engage on Agoracom. You don't want to give your Google juice and attention to other places where it's a wild west, the company's being attacked, can't defend itself, and then driving new potential investors to that. And so really appreciate you guys thinking smartly and constructively and putting more and more of your questions and comments on Agoracom. Bernard, you got to reward them by, popping in there. And we know you're crazy busy. We know that, but you got to reward them by popping in there a couple times a week, answering some question, engaging. But keep it up, guys. Thanks for joining us. Signing off from Singapore. God knows I'm going to be overseas, Singapore, then Dubai, with a couple of stops in between. So that probably means more calls from Bernard in all sorts of different times and time zones, but we're happy to do it. Until then, go ahead, Bernard. What you were going to say?
No,
something
I was
there.
just saying,
More
listen,
coming, more coming.
Your travel plan changes nothing in the press release lineup of doing it. It just happened to be working this way, but I think that there's more good stuff coming along.
Yeah, I think that's a universe thing. It's like the universe just knows, hey, he's on vacation. There's news. Let's
You're
call this
supposed
guy
to be
up.
working. You're supposed to be working on tokenization. We'll talk about that later.
And I am. I love it. Listen, I am. I love doing this. I'm kidding around, right? I love doing this.
Yeah.
It's just, the 12-hour time zone difference is a murder, but I don't care. It's fun as hell. And everyone's participating. The shareholders are participating with great engagement. So let's keep it going. Congratulations, Bernard. I'm going to say that you didn't want the, from the questions, but to you and the whole team, keep it going. Can't wait till the batteries land. And if you're going to have some of those special packs, I definitely want one of the first packs with your autograph right on it. I want to be able to put it on a shelf somewhere and keep it for, for the next 50 years. Until then, thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a great day. See you next time.
See you next time.
Hey, small cap fam. I hope you loved this interview because more than a dozen people were involved in its production for the sole purpose of making you happy. If so, can you take a moment to support both our awesome guest company and Agoracom? Your engagement means the world to us. First, if you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up by tapping that like button. It's a small gesture that helps this interview reach even more potential investors to discover today's guest. Second, we would love to hear your feedback on this interview, so please leave a comment below. Be sure to keep it clean, but feel free to poke fun at George. If you loved what you heard on today's video and want to dig into our guest company right away, take a look at the links in the description below. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell to never miss another great Agoracom small cap video. Thank you so much. We couldn't do any of this without you. Make sure to come back soon.